Hello, everyone. Again, we just did our prayer, our initial reading, and we are here ready to hear Joao. But before that, although we don't like to say old friend because then it sounds like all of us, we are old. A friend from many, many, many lifetimes. But for all of those that doesn't know about Joao, what he does, who he is, I'm going to take a minute to read these short bios. So, Joao Korngold is one of the founders and directors of the Spiritist Group of New York and the Spiritist Alliance for Books. Joao began studying Spiritism more than 25 years ago and has been one of the directors of the mediumistic meeting at the Spiritist Group of New York for the past 20 years. He's also responsible for study groups that focus on the basic books of Spiritism and on the André Luis collection. Joao gives talks on Spiritism in Portuguese and English. No Spanish, Joao. Come on. No, that's perfect. And as a profession, he is an engineer and works as a banker. And for today, the title of the presentation is Exploring Roles and Responsibilities Within Spiritist Groups. And basically, Joao is going to focus on chapters 51 to 54 of the book Like Ahead by Francisco Cándido Javier. And we're not going to take more of your time, Joao, so please enlighten us. Thank you.
Thank you, Alba. Thank you all for joining us this evening. As Alba said before, on a nice summer afternoon here in the East Coast of the US. I hope you are all enjoying the weather. I I don't give lectures in Spanish, Alba, because I don't really speak Spanish that well. I can speak Portuñol, and I don't think a Spiritist lecture in Portuñol is going to be that great. But, something for the future, maybe next incarnation. So what happened with the pandemic is that a lot of things changed, right? On our personal lives, of course, we had a lot of changes in the world, and in Spiritism, of course. And when we talk about Spiritism, I would like to divide the pandemic in two parts. On an individual aspect, it opened up the world for us. We have the opportunity of watching lectures from centers around the world. If we understand the languages, we can access lectures in Spanish, in Portuguese, in English, in French, anywhere we want. So it really opened the access to all of our knowledge and understanding of Spiritism. But on the other hand, it caused a little bit of harm to Spiritist groups, right? Because many people that stopped going to the Spiritist centers during the pandemic never went back. Either because they found other interests, found other objectives in life, or because they feel comfortable in their own sofas watching live talks like the one I'm giving here, that give us the opportunity, right, to be in Baltimore while here in New York. So it's really a great improvement on our connection to one another. But Spiritist groups are the basis of Spiritism. So we need to address the issue. What are our roles and responsibilities within Spiritist groups if we are part of one? So before we go into the presentation, and again, like Alba mentioned, this is based on a book called Light Ahead, which is some messages from Francisco Xavier. And this is chapter 51 to 54. We are going to go through each one of them. They are talk to us about a little bit about Spiritist groups. But before we go to a Spiritist group, let us think of our individual responsibilities towards ourselves and towards others. So we are going to divide in 3 groups, basically, right? And again, there is no right or wrong here. It's just how we want to deal with Spiritism individually. The first group are those that are much more focused on their individual learning and understanding. They are not really that interested in being part of groups or associations that don't, that decide that going to the Spiritist Center is not worth, that they can study by themselves and learn everything through the internet. Or some, like I have a couple of friends that like Spiritism, but like all other things also, right? Study Buddhism, study other philosophies, and they want to get a little bit of everything, so they don't want to commit. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a personal decision and a personal choice that we make on our spiritual journey, right? So if that's the case, again, as long as we are trying to improve morally, intellectually, and morally, we are doing our job. We don't really have the obligation or responsibility to attend any Spiritist group if that's not what we feel it's our personal journey. Parenthesis here: if there are some people when we are outside Brazil, because in Brazil, if you want to go to a Spiritist center, there is one in every corner, so it's not an issue. But if you are outside Brazil, you may be in a place where there is no Spiritist center close to you. So, you can stay in the comfortable position of watching online, or you can do like a friend that just told me recently that she's been moving around for the past 10 years, and she went to different countries. And in one country, there was one Spiritist center. She went there, didn't like very much. So she opened a study group in her home with a group of friends. And then she moved to another country. There was no Spiritist centers around her. So she started a study group virtually because it was in the middle of the pandemic. And then after the pandemic, they started meeting once a month, and the others meetings still virtually. So there are ways of us to start something wherever we are, if that's what we would like. It is important for us to reflect on our willingness to dedicate ourselves to Spiritism in which way we choose. The second group is the ones that want to be part of a Spiritist center, but want to just attend, do not want to be involved in any activity, meaning don't want to give passes or to clean or to organize, and that's fine also. If you go to a Spiritist center once a week to receive your passes, to have the water and to listen to a small talk, and that's where you feel comfortable at the moment, that's fine. Now, the third group, and that's where I want to focus more on this discussion, are the ones that want to have roles and responsibilities within Spiritist groups. From the very basic ones, like giving water, or opening the doors, or cleaning the center, to the ones that want to assume more responsibility, directing study groups, giving lectures, being part of the administration of the center. So these are the ones that we want to focus on this presentation, Okay? And again, very important, there is no right or wrong here. Each one has their own responsibilities on their own personal lives. What we must be aware is if we are not running away from our responsibilities, if we are not avoiding work in Spiritism because we don't want to, we are afraid. If that's the case, then we need to have a more serious conversations with ourselves and with members of our Spiritist groups to discuss possibilities. Okay, so on chapter 51, Batuira talks about a Spiritist group, the spirit of Batuira through the mediumship of Francisco Xavier, right? And he compares the Spiritist group to a vessel. So when we are there, we are part of this vessel on a trip, right? And we are going to be a Spiritist group that hopefully is serving Christ. And he says, this is a precious vessel that gets struck all the time, illuminated and pursued by elements that are unleashed by nature when imbalance arises. What does he mean here? Well, attacked by spirits, our personal ambitions, our pride, our selfishness, it's all the things that cause the storm, the vessel, to be attacked externally and internally by different forces that can threaten the good balance of a Spiritist center. And he continues, if it doesn't endure the storm, it plummets to the bottom. What it means is it may risk closing the doors. If it stops, it delays its journey. If it does not defend itself, it is threatened by sea monsters. If it doesn't have precise directions, it's destined to get lost, having to bear the consequences. Again, the consequences here are consequences for all its members. If we are responsible, are part of a Spiritist center, and the Spiritist center gets sidetracked, gets disturbed, gets attacked, gets divided, we are all responsible. Those that are part of the problem and those that are part of the solution. Because in the end, it's working together that we have the responsibility of keeping our Spiritist center moving forward and working in unison. But one thing that is important, as he says here, even if the pace seems slow, let us proceed steadily. The work belongs to the one who assigned us for the trip, and the port shines full of light and blessings. Slowly but surely. And that's very important. Sometimes we want to embrace the world, right? We want to have activities every day. We want to do everything and a little more. And the quality suffers. There is no reason for a Spiritist center to have its doors open 24/7 if it doesn't offer quality work. It's better to be open a couple of days a week, to focus on helping and assisting all those in need that come to the Spiritist Center in search of hope, in search of consolation, in search of education, reminding ourselves that the two basic aspects of a Spiritist Center, what it can offer to us is education and consolation, not necessarily in that order. So people arrive at the Spiritist Center in search of help and assistance with a large number of problems, and we have to work to help those in need first, providing fraternal assistance, and then guiding them to an improvement on their lives and their spiritual journey. Again, our journey is an individual journey where we are part of a group of people that can help us. We move together forward as society, but we all have to do our personal jobs. So let us be careful with planning and execution of the activities of our Spiritist Center to make sure that we can deliver efficiently what we want to offer. And again, it is not always the presence of wind that subdues the ships that sail bravely. It's often the absence of a compass. And the compass is a safe guide to the necessary steps for the accomplishment of the duties to which we have been called. And this is very important, right? The disturbances, the attacks, the external problems that we have in the Spiritist groups, people leaving, people arriving, people getting dissatisfied with the services that the Spiritist Center offers. These are all things that we have to deal on a daily life of a Spiritist Center. But if we have a firm guidance, if we have a plan and we follow the plan, we'll be able to overcome all the challenges that will come our way, and we'll be able to achieve the objectives of the Spiritist Center, which is to help all those members to evolve morally and intellectually. And remembering that no matter what happens, let us make use of prayer to reconcile differences that may arise. Differences happen, differences of opinion, differences of objectives. Not everyone that goes to the Spiritist Center have their own personal reasons to be there, but we have to remember to connect to our spiritual benefactors, to the spiritual mentors that direct our groups, so they can be of assistance to us, that they can harmonize the thoughts and vibrations of the group, so we can all together work for the benefit of all. So in chapter 52, it's called The Perfect Group. And this is by Brother X. And he tells the story of a group that it's one of the components of the group, Mrs. Clara. She asks Julio Marquez, who is the spiritual director. This is a small group. And she tells him that she would like to establish a Spiritist group according to my principles, and asks him, do you believe that this would be possible? And he says, yes, without a doubt. We are all called to work for God. Again, for those that live in a place where there is no Spiritist centers close to them, or those that are unhappy with the Spiritist centers they are attending and would like to continue to work in a group, the option here is establish a Spiritist group according to our own principles. Is it possible? Yes, like the spiritual mentor here, Julio Marquez, says. We are all called to work for God. How we conduct the work is a personal journey of each one of us. And then she continues, I would like to have an institution where people come together with a strict notion of pure intentions, without selfishness, irritation, misunderstanding, disagreements. You'll be a temple built on the foundation of workers who will never fall from grace, offering a permanent example of heavenly behavior on earth for the glorification of charity. So she really wants a group of perfect spirits, right? And then she asks, can I count on you? And he answers very wisely, oh child, I'm afraid I'm not qualified for the task. I'm a too imperfect spirit. I'm still very attached to earth. And then she says, but we receive so many teachings from you. And he replies, these teachings don't belong to me. They belong to the mentors who sympathize with my deficiencies. Again, the characteristic of a more evolved spirit is to be humble, to understand and know his or her limitations. And it's an example to all of us, because when we venture ourselves to do some work, we need to be aware of our limitations, but we cannot be constrained by them. Because if we start doubting ourselves too much, we're not going to do anything. So, yes, let's move forward, but being aware of our own limitations and counting on those around us that have the abilities that we don't have. And then she continues, but somewhere there must be an impeccable association. Tell me, Brother Julio, do you know of a flawless group as the one am I describing? And if you do, where can I find it? You know, she's looking for the ideal group. And he replies very wisely, yes, my child, such a perfect group must exist. Surely it must be the group of our Lord Jesus Christ. Again, the message here, let's not try to be perfect. We're not going to succeed. Let's try to be efficient. Let's try to work with the best of our abilities, making the effort to improve every day, like we are told to the true Spiritist is the one that tries to be better today than he or she were yesterday. So as we go into work at a Spiritist center, let us try to do the best, but understanding our own limitations and accepting others' limitation also. We're not going to find a perfect place. And again, if we find the perfect group, we won't be able to work there because we are not perfect. So we would be there only watching the work being done by others. And if a group calls themselves perfect, they're not here on planet Earth. They work maybe with Jesus, or they are in an illusion of themselves. So perfect group is the one that we can work to improve ourselves morally and intellectually. So what's our role in a Spiritist group? And this comes from Emmanuel, right? That's the chapter 53 of the book Light Ahead. Emmanuel tells us, starts by saying, for where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them, Jesus, in Matthew 18:20. Again, Jesus told us that he would be with us every time that we get together in a group of 2 or 3, a small group. We have to remember, we hear the stories about Paul of Tarsus going from place to place to spread Christianity and going to these small villages and talking to people and bringing the message of Jesus. And we imagine him talking to large crowds, and when in reality he will talk to 2 or 3 people in the city and find in the villages and try to find 2 or 3 followers of the gospel, and then leave with them the teachings where they can multiply. So let's remember that if we want to start a group, let's start small. 2 or 3 is enough, right? If we are by ourselves, we are not doing anything for others, for society. We are doing just for ourselves, which is maybe okay if that's our objective at the moment. right? I don't want to be involved in anything that gives me more responsibility than I'm prepared to deal with. I just want to study for myself, and in the future I'll rethink that. That's fine. But we have to make that decision, right? We have to make that choice. Now, if we want to be part of a Spiritist group, if we want to be in attendance, if we want to collaborate, Emmanuel tells us, since we know that each worker in this Christian Spiritist field undertakes a specific task, we must ask ourselves from time to time, who are we within the working group to which we belong? So let us ask ourselves, are we a key to solve problems or an element that aggravates them? And these are all questions that we have to ask ourselves, and we have to look in the mirror and give an honest answer to ourselves. Do we go to the Spiritist Center to help it progress, to help it grow, or are we an element that creates problems for a Spiritist Center? We arrive there and are, dumping others with our own issues without helping to solve them. And again, these are for those that are part of a Spiritist group for some time. Of course, those that arrive at the Spiritist Center for the first time, for the second time, that are just starting, they are bringing their problems, and it is our responsibility to help them find a spiritual answer to their problems. We're talking about those that are part of a group and have been going to a Spiritist Center for some time. Are we a companion that attends the classes diligently, or an associate that, out of boredom, only turns up occasionally? And again, this is very important. I met a couple in Brazil when I was there last month that used to be workers at the Spiritist Center, and after the pandemic, they can't bring themselves to go back to the Spiritist Center and start working again because they got distracted with other things in life, and they are really struggling with the necessity of going back and the lack of motivation of going back. Who are we, right? Are we there to learn, to improve ourselves, and in turn to help the group? Or we are there when we have time, from time to time, only when when we feel like, when the weather is helps us, when we are not going to face challenges, because every day that we have to go to a Spiritist Center, something will come up. We all have our difficulties in life. Now, are we willing to dedicate ourselves to the task, or we are just going there whenever we feel like? And again, if that's our choice, fine, but let's go there and not disturb the work of those that are working more seriously. Let us attend quietly, respectfully, and then leave without creating any issues. Are we a friend who understands and assists, or a chronic judge who condemns and complicates everything? Emmanuel asks us, who are we at the Spiritist Center when we arrive there and we see we're watching someone doing their work, or someone teaching a class, someone giving a lecture? Are we thinking within ourselves with criticism? I could have been doing better. I'm wasting my time here, condemning and complicating everything. Because even if we're not saying anything, the spiritual vibration, the vibrations we're bringing to the place will give more work to the spirits to clean the ambient, to keep the ambient in a better environment. So let us be charitable to the ones that are doing the work, not criticizing those that are making an effort, even if we are able to see their limitations, but the ability to accept and be charitable towards others' limitations is a characteristic of an evolved spirit. Do we want to evolve as a spirit, as an eternal spirit in our eternal journey? Then we must look at those that are working with love and understanding, not judging and not criticizing, even if it's in our own minds. So, are we being a restoring balm or a corrosive acid to a center? That's in our own thoughts. What are we thinking about? What sort of vibrations are we bringing to the Spiritist Center? Again, the workers, the ones that attend regularly, the ones that arrive in search of spiritual assistance, they are not either of these, because they have their own problems that we need to be able to help them. We're talking about those that go to the Spiritist Center on a regular basis. And are we going to be a nurse dedicated to practicing good within the community, or are we the patient that must be born and nursed by others? We live immersed in our own problems. We go to the Spiritist Center because we want spiritual assistance to get rid of our problems, and we only think about ourselves. Or we go to the Spiritist Center with a sense of community, with a sense of helping and assisting others, aware of our own problems, trying to overcome our own problems and challenges, but opening ourselves, knowing that without charity there is no salvation. So by working to help and assisting others, we are going to help ourselves in the end. So are we going to be a source of help or a wasteland that benefits no one? It's our personal choice. Are we going to be a support for good deeds or a breach that allows the influence of evil? Again, how do we allow the influence of evil? If we bring these lower vibrations from where we come, we bring these spirits associated with us. There is inferior spirits that will breach the Spiritist Center if the guards are not there to prevent it, and can cause a lot of spiritual disturbance in the Spiritist Center. So what are we going to be when we go to the Spiritist Center? Are we going to be a fruitful plant or a destructive parasite? And Emmanuel concludes by saying, if we conduct this self-examination, we will easily find out whether we are merely a part of Spiritism or if Spiritism is already a part of us. That's very profound and beautiful. If we go to the Spiritist Center and we only create problems, even if we are not aware, we are part of Spiritism. But if Spiritism is already a part of us, it's who we are there to help those in need, to be part of an effort to help the community and the members to evolve, and the group to be a beacon of light within the area, within the city, within the country. And on chapter 54, that's again from Brother X, who was Humberto de Campos. Probably you heard the story, right? Was a famous writer in Brazil in the beginning of the 20th century. And when he was not a Spiritist, he was a member of the Brazilian Academy of Writers. when he went back to the spiritual world, he gave some messages through Francisco Xavier in the very beginning of Francisco Xavier's mediumship journey, and the Good Tidings, the Good News, one of the first books that unfortunately is not yet translated into English. It's a beautiful book. And after that book, his family sued the Brazilian Spiritist Federation and Francisco Xavier, wanting royalties from the writings if they were really from Humberto de Campos. And Humberto de Campos, they ended up, the Brazilian Federation ended up winning the case, but Humberto de Campos decided that he was no longer going to use his name, and he adopted the name of Brother X. And that's how he signed all the other psychography books that he wrote to Francisco Xavier. Okay, so in this chapter, the readjusted group, he talks to us about a group of gospel apprentices that was established and requested opportunities to work. And on behalf of several spiritual mentors, Clara was there, the spirit responsible for the group and responsible to help and assist the group as well. The well-tuned group would operate as a precious instrument for heavenly help, no doubt about that. Goodwill, faith, and love was all they would need, and Clara is more than willing to help them. Nonetheless, those companions seemed not to be listening. As soon as the spirit of Sister Clara manifested herself at the beginning of the meeting, the requests and complaints started. So each individual of the group, and again, this is a short passages from the chapter. The chapter is a long one, and it goes over each manifestations, each complaints of each member of the group with the names and everything. It's very interesting. So each member of the group has their own personal issues. So they would go to the meeting to complain and to request for personal assistance. You know, one was sick, the other had financial problems, the other had family problems, the other had work-related problems. All of them have problems like we all have, right? If we open ourselves to complaints for each one of us, we are all going to start to have a long list of complaints of everything that is not going well in our personal lives, because we are imperfect spirits living in a world of trials and atonements, so we are far from perfection. So Sister Clara proceeded assisting everyone as well as she could. She would return to the meetings every week, courageous and optimistic. However, she was not able to change the environment. The complaints and the requests would continue week after week. And the group celebrated their 10th anniversary. Their spiritual mentor informed the group that she would attempt to start the work of charity, the circle's work of charity, spiritual charity. And before the closing prayer, the incarnated group leader asked, "Did the benefits reach the absent companion, sister?" And Clara explained, "No, it hadn't. It had been unsuccessful." Then she asks for Brother Claudio to come and give a message to the group. And through Mrs. Gertrude, a medium, he told them, "My friends, Spiritism is a doctrine of progress. For 10 consecutive years, you have been helped to learn how to help. There is no doubt that God remains with us. It is necessary to know, however, whether we, in turn, are with God." Again, another profound phrase that we have to think and reflect. God is with us and helping us at all times. Are we doing the work of God? Or are we focusing on our personal, individual, physical challenges, the challenges of the material world? Or are we more interested in helping the progress of ourselves, our families, our groups? That's what we have to ask ourselves. That's what we have to reflect. And then Sister Clara informed, I believed our inspector solved the problem. Thanks be to God. Meaning, the responsibility of the group was to think less about their own personal problems and more about how could they be instruments of assistance to those spirits in need. And then the group continued the work. So what we wanted to bring here is an idea of what are our roles and responsibilities within Spiritist groups, right? Kardec talks about Spiritist groups by the end of the Medians book. And he tells us that the influence of the surroundings derives from the nature of the spirits and the way in which they act upon human beings. So by their influence, we can deduce for ourselves the most favorable conditions for a society that aspires attracting the sympathy of good spirits. We need to have harmony amongst ourselves. We need to reject sentiments of pride, vanity, superiority. We need to have the sole desire to make ourselves useful to others if we want to be an active participant of a Spiritist group on this after-pandemic situation that we find ourselves. So I hope it helped. I hope you guys have the opportunity to reflect, to think about our own roles and responsibilities, and it's upon each one of us to decide how we want to follow and continue our journey. I would like to thank the Spiritist Society of Baltimore for the invitation, and I'm available here if you guys have any questions, any comments. Thank you, Alba.
Thank you so very much. What a great reminder, because it is so easy to get accustomed, to attend the Spirit Center, to do this and that as a routine, and it actually has a deeper responsibility. So thank you so very much for this reminder, from bringing these complicated teachings in a very simple manner. It was so easy to understand. Thank you very much. So we're going now to see if we have some questions here. Daniel, okay, here. So it says, from the Spiritist Network, thanks, Joao. In your opinion, what is the best way to spread the Spiritist teachings for those that are not Spiritists yet?
Yeah. What I say is, first is to ask if they are really interested, right? Because especially when we are here in this country, that nobody ever heard of Spiritism, and we are talking about something that is completely foreign to them, right? The first question is, are they really interested, or is just a social question? What's your religion, or what's your beliefs? If it's only a social question, we answer in a quick way by just telling that we are a spiritual person. We believe, we have some beliefs in reincarnation, in the survival of the soul, but we don't go very deep. Now, if it's someone that's really interested, we need to engage in the discussion of what is their interest, right? What is the area of interest? Reincarnation, right? 30% of Americans believe in reincarnation. 29.99% have no idea how it works. Is there curiosity to understand reincarnation? Or what happens after we die? If you go to, the other day I was watching, someone start sending me small videos, small lectures on spirituality here from the US, right? And there is so many that talk of afterlife. And I think Spiritism has so much information to give on what happens to us after life. And there is so little information out there, or so many distorted information. So we can enter into a serious discussion on what happens on the afterlife. Or someone that is struggling, suffering, we can provide with what Spiritism can bring to them. So I don't believe in giving the Spirit's book to someone that never heard of Spiritism, because it's too thick and they're not going to get interest in that. Maybe giving one Spiritism in its simplest expression, that small book, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe directing them to some lectures, basic lectures that are available. You know, the United States Spiritist Federation now has 3 years of lectures every Saturday at 11 a.m. So there is all sorts of information there. So we need to, I think our role when we talk to someone who's not a Spiritist is, first of all, to listen. What are they looking for, right? Because many times we get enthusiastic and we start talking too much, and we end up giving too much information and confusing them instead of helping them. Mm-hmm. So we need to start by listening and understanding what are their needs, and according to their needs, we can direct them in one way or another according to our knowledge and our resources.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Joao. And if you allow me to add that it is not our role as Spiritist workers to impose or to try to convince anyone about the doctrine, because as you mentioned several times during your presentation, this is a personal journey. It is something that belongs only to the individual. Thank you, Joao. Daniel, I don't know if you have more questions from Facebook. Okay. So the Spiritist Society of Baltimore is asking, what would be the best way to address conflicts with a member in the Spiritist group?
An open conversation, right? A fraternal conversation, trying to understand what are the issues, right? And again, in Spiritism, we see a lot of fractures in Spiritism groups and divisions and openings of other groups. And that's not a bad thing per se, because Kardec said in the Medium's book, it's better to have 20 groups of 20 people than one group of 400 people. Because in a group of 400 people, very few are going to work. In 20 groups of 20 people, everybody is going to be working. So, sometimes the best way to address the conflict is to have a sincere conversation and accept and understand, be charitable with the decisions made by the other members of the group. We get, we with our pride and selfishness, we get offended if people have different opinions than ourselves, if they have different thoughts. And one thing that I learned that I thought it was very interesting from a Spiritist group, from a director of a Spiritist group a long time ago, she said that she was very strict with all the aspects of the group, right? And she said, from the color of the curtains to the disposition of the chairs, to the study groups, to the teachings, I wanted to control everything. and she ended up facing a lot of trouble, a lot of difficulties, and losing members, and having to deal with a lot of stress. And then finally, she reached the conclusion that what was important is to focus on Kardec's teachings and Spiritism, not to deviate from the basics of Spiritism, to be very, very committed to the doctrine, but not to be very concerned with all the accessories of the Spiritist Center, right? She said, if the curtains are black or blue or green, it's not going to make a difference if you have a group that is committed to study. So what she learned, and she said that the way that the group has, been working is, let us agree to disagree in things that are not fundamental of the doctrine. If you have disagreements of the doctrine, then it becomes serious.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone wants to work Tuesday at noon and the other wants to work Saturday in the afternoon, you people that volunteer to do the work, please go ahead and start the work and commit to it and start the work. Let us not have disagreements on accessories. Mm-hmm. Let us commit to the doctrine, and whatever is not important to the doctrine, let's be flexible. Very important.
Yes, it's like a human nature, right? Like about the Clara, the member of the Spiritist group, not the mentor, that you wanted a perfect Spiritist group, right? It's our tendency for perfectionism, and yeah, we need to take a step back and say what is truly important, what is at the heart of the Spiritist Center. I think we have a question from the public, from the audience here. Do you want to come here? Okay. So
hi, John. Can you hear me, John?
Yes.
Yes. Hi, my name is Jeanette. How are you?
Hi, Jeanette. How are you?
It's beautiful. I like it. But John, this in my mind is something like you talk about the people who help with the passes, the cleaning, the study group. But what about the financial issue? How are we going to address that issue in the Spirit Center?
That's a very good question and very complex, actually, right? Because especially after the pandemic, we need to survive. How we can survive? It's a discussion that we've been having for forever. I think it's important that the members of the group are aware of the financial situation of the Spiritist Center. It is not, I don't think it's asking for donations in a public lecture is the best approach. We see the churches and especially the evangelical churches, the way that they survive is by forcing the members to donate, and that's not Spiritism. Spiritism is a voluntary work of assistance, but it is our own responsibilities. Again, if we talk about us individually, we go to a Spiritist center on a regular basis, we need to understand their financial situation, and we need to volunteer to contribute with whatever we can. Some people are not able to contribute financially. So how can I be of help if not financially, right? But if I can contribute financially, what can I do? How can I help? Is it should the Spiritist Center have activities to raise money? Yes. We did a GoFund at our group at the start of the pandemic, so we could continue paying for the rent of the room when we were not using, and it was successful. We have members that contribute on a monthly basis, and it's very interesting. I find it easier to to make non-Brazilians understand that, because they are more used to contribute to the places they go. You know, normally what I say is that Americans, when they arrive at the Spiritist Center, the first reaction is that they are very scared, because what these guys are going to want from me. There's no such thing as a free lunch. So if these guys are not charging me anything, it's because they want something in return. What do they want? Am I going to a cult? That's, you know, that's the what they I think that what they think when they arrive. But once they know more, they learn about spiritism, and they get used to it, and they understand. They are much more helpful financially than sometimes Brazilians that are, you know, it's not in our blood to contribute. It's something that we have to make an effort. We have to learn ourselves how to be of assistance. So, you know, I think that the directors of the group cannot hide from the members the necessities. They need to be open, and they need to be to make everyone aware that you know, we have to pay the rent, we have to pay for electricity. We're not charging for anyone to come to the center, but we need people to be aware of the situation, and if they want to help, they need to know that there are ways of helping, right? Donation box, things like that.
Thank you, Joao. Give God what is God, and Caesar what is to Caesar. I don't know if we have any other question from. Okay,
Yes.
we have Yasko Rakava from Brazil.
Hi,
She
Yasko.
she says, very significant and impeccable advice from our benefactors you have brought, that we as workers too will be very aware about our intentions, discipline, and quality of work we offer. Thanks. Oh, it's a comment.
Yes, thanks, Yasko. And one thing that I didn't mention, but I think it's very important also. Sometimes we arrive at the Spiritist Center and we fall in love with Spiritism, and we want to work 100% of our time in a Spiritist Center. Let's be very careful and analyze what can we give, right? Because sometimes we overpromise to ourselves and to the group, and we end up not being able to deliver. So let's do what we can, but be aware that, we have families, we have kids, we have work. So can we really commit 100% of our time to the center? No, we cannot. So, but let's commit the 5% of our time that we can commit. Let's always be there to commit of that 5%.
Yeah. Thank you, Joao. I don't know if there is any. Oh, Danielle says, what is the advantage to affiliate a Spiritist Center to a state or national federation?
Yes, it is very important, because when we work in isolation, we can easily become victims of processes of obsession, fascination, and these things that can affect groups, that affect individuals and affect groups. When we are part of a national federation and we are involved with the work of a larger group, we learn about whatever comes that's new, some ideas. We can exchange experiences with our groups, learn from the other groups what they are successful in doing, sharing our own successful experiences, sharing our difficulties and our challenges, and maybe we are stuck in some problem, and we can ask someone from another group and someone within the federation. Federations all normally provides with courses, with material that sometimes we don't have access. Meetings like the symposium, which is a meeting of groups every year that we have here in the US. The next one is in Portland, Oregon, in September. We should we need to work as a group if we want to be a part of the Spiritist movement. Our Spiritist group needs to be part of the federations, and the federations part of the international organization, because that's the only way we are going to evolve. Isolating ourselves, we are running a risk of individual or group obsessions and fascinations.
That's right. Thank you, Joao. Let me ask my director. I have a very last question. Is that all right? Daniel behind the camera. Okay. Can we call a spiritist center a spiritist center if they don't hold or don't have the mediumistic meeting? Is that a spiritist center?
Yes. Any group that studies spiritism and dedicate themselves to the works of Kardec and the works of Spiritism are called Spiritists, can call themselves Spiritist centers. Sometimes you don't have, let's say you start a study group, there you have 3 people, and all 3 of them, they are dedicating themselves to study the gospel, to study the Spirit's book, and they don't have experience or knowledge in mediumship. That doesn't prevent them from becoming a Spiritist center. It's just, you have to register yourself, and the time you become a Spiritist center, it naturally will grow. Can we spend the eternity without having a mediumship group? Yes, we can, but we shouldn't, because a mediumship group is a way of us learning and improving with our exchanges with the spiritual world. The mediumship group exists for the incarnates, much more than the discarnates, right? Mm-hmm. Normally, I say we have 150,000 discarnations every day in the world. So, it's not 100 mediumship meetings every day that is going to address all those discarnates. So the work is really for us incarnates. What we do. By helping those that are in need on the other side, we're learning more about ourselves and about the reality of the spiritual world. And by receiving assistance and guidance from the spiritual mentors through mediumship, we are learning and growing. So ideally, yes, we should have a mediumship meeting in every Spiritist center. But if we don't, it's not a reason for not to call ourselves Spiritist groups or Spiritist centers. It's just when 2 or more are reunited in my name, I'll be there, says Jesus. So if 2 or more are reunited to study Spiritism, they should call themselves a Spiritist group or Spiritist center.
Thank you, Joao. Thank you very much. And this is a very hopeful message, especially for those who are in different states that they don't have a Spiritist center yet. Abhishek is saying thank you so much for your uplifting talk.
Thanks, Abby.
And Rosaura from Georgia, Joao, thank you for this wonderful talk. Rosaura. Yeah. Do we have anything else? No. So, Joao, we got to the end of our conversation. Do you have any final thoughts, a final idea that you want to communicate?
I just want to thank you all for the attention, for the questions, for the discussions. I think it's important for us to reflect on our individual journeys and to decide what path we want to follow, right? Mm-hmm. And if our path is within a Spiritist center, let's commit ourselves to help and assist, to be an active member of the Spiritist center in any format that we can, to help and assist. And if not, let us continue learning and studying, because everything changes, and eventually one day in this incarnation or another we'll be part of a group.
Thank you, Joao. We would like to ask you one very last favor.
Okay.
Do you mind closing the session with the final prayer?
Oh, yes, it would be my pleasure.
Thank you.
And we keep our thoughts elevated, connected to the spiritual benefactors. We thank them for the opportunity of being here this evening, from bringing the teachings of Jesus to discuss our roles and responsibilities within our life, within our community. We ask for the protection throughout the week. We extend our vibrations of love, of fraternity to all our brothers and sisters, our families, our friends, all those struggling throughout the world with all the problems that are part of this world of trials and expiations. We ask for the protection throughout the week, for the opportunity of being reunited again next week to continue the studies, the learning, to continue working, and thankful to our Master Jesus with our hearts full of gratitude. We ask permission to close our meeting. So be